Hello, wood turners, and welcome to another episode of The Naked Turner. I wanted to say something really briefly about our ancestors because I believe a lot of the knowledge that we have within us comes from our ancestors. And I really feel like a lot of skills that we have, whether they be literary writing skills or skills of trade and craft, a lot of that comes from our ancestors and where they've been and what they've been through. So I think it's very important that we pay homage to those ancestors and the amazing abilities that they had and were graceful enough to hand down to us through our DNA. And today I have a piece of Sapele 3/4 by 9 and a quarter inch piece of Sapele, and I have my faceplate, which I warmed up, cleaned off and warmed up a little because it was pretty cold, and applied some turner's tape to the surface. Now I'm going to make sure I center this plate up as best as possible and stick it to the Sapele, and then we'll start turning. Okay, so before I expose the double stick turner's tape to the surface, I'm going to make sure I take measurements all around, and I set this centered, and I mark the 4 holes and a small pencil line around the outside edge so that I can reposition it there. Alright, so now, because this is just held on here with double stick tape, since it's relatively thin and I didn't want to create any screw holes in the bottom side, or actually on the inside of this bowl, I wanted to keep there, as much wood as possible without holes in it. So I've double stuck it here. I'm now going to be centering this up as far as making sure my tailstock center is indeed in the center, and I want to actually switch out to this tailstock. Now, let's move back a little, have that loose, come out, bring this up loosely, and now turning down my RPM and spinning relatively slowly, and I'm going to just bring this in and see if I'm getting any run out, any wobble in my tailstock head, and I'm not at this point. I'm going to start tightening it a little bit more. Okay, that looks pretty good. So there, I'm going to pressurize the bottom of this plate against my headstock just to make sure that it doesn't fly off of there. And I'll do some shaping, make sure it's stuck really well. This actually clamps it onto that double stick nice and tightly, and then what I'll do is pull the tailstock out of the way, hollow out a mortise for my scrolling jaw chuck. Alright, so we'll get turning. Always remember the eye protection. Alright, so here I am truing up the outside edge of this piece of Sapele, and now I'm using my 5/8 bowl gouge with a severely swept back Irish grind, and I'm creating the outer shape of the bottom of this plate, and bringing it down from about a 9 1/4 inch to about a 9-inch round as I'm screwing up the outer edge of this plate. What I'm looking for is a nice kind of sexy curve, is a good way to put it. Kind of trying to find a graceful curve that will serve a purpose, which gives you a place to be able to reach under the plate and grab the plate off the table easily, because that curve is matching up to the shape of your finger as you go to pull the plate off the table. So I'm creating the foot and searching for that graceful curve that I was talking about at this point. And I'm just taking light passes, doing a pull cut with a real steep angle on my gouge. And now I'm going to come back, turning up the speed a little bit, and I'm going to come back and do some shear scraping here. And I'm doing that for several reasons. I'm doing that to smooth the surface out, take a real fine cut, which will tend to create less chatter out toward the outer edge of these thin plate edges that you might be creating. So there, I'm real close to the shape I'm looking for at this point. Okay. It's got the basic shape that I'm looking for. A little bit of round over out here. I'm just getting rid of the sharp edge here on the outside corner. This is a risky procedure right there. Maybe a little bit more. Yeah, do it. Now I'm going to actually create a little bit of a foot shoulder down at the bottom, and then pulling out lightly, taking a very, very fine final pass here. There we go. Increase the speed a little more. Doing a little bit of shear scraping, trying to get to that graceful curve that I'm looking for. And listening to the wood, because the wood will kind of tell you what it wants you to do. So I'm looking for this little last pass in here to make a little more graceful curve. I'm not quite finding it, so I'm coming back and doing these light passes until I achieve the curve that I'm looking for. Okay. There it is. And there it is. All right. So now I have it sanded to 320. I'm putting a little bit of denatured alcohol on this particular wood to just raise the grain a little bit and get rid of any of that kind of dust that might be on it. This is a fairly oily, it's dry but fairly oily wood, so I want to kind of open the pores so that the finish sticks really well. And just see how much it raises the grain. Okay, so actually that grain at 320 is really nice. So all I'm going to do now is come back with my 320, just one little bit more, just for a quick pass. There we go. And then I'll come back just real lightly and wipe off the dust. Starting out fairly slow, down around 250, 240 RPMs. And this will just get some of that down in there. Okay, and this is Sapele. Alright, so this stuff will drink up a little bit of this since I treated it with a little alcohol. just have this on with double stick now. So I want to make sure I can apply a fair amount of pressure in here, all the way out to about here. But then once I get out onto this lip, I don't want to apply too much pressure because it's only double stuck on. And actually probably what I'll do for my final polish out here, I'm going to bring my tailstock, excuse me, I'll bring my tailstock back in for a little bit of pressure. Even though I don't think this thing's going to fly off, that turning tape is amazingly strong. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's hard to pop off when you want to pop it off. Okay, so now that I have that polished, I'm going to bring my tailstock back in, just apply a tiny bit of pressure, and then I can apply some more pressure out here. Really get a high sheen out here on this edge. It's just friction, curing the shellac and beeswax. Okay, and there you have it. Beautiful finish. Now I'm going to make my mortise, and then I'll flip it around and we'll do some hollow. Okay, now I'm creating the mortise. Making the dovetail. Okay, just make sure. Alright, that looks good. A little bit of a chamfer on that. Now, come back in and flatten out the bottom. Okay, a little wipe out, a little finish. So when you're going to pull off the turner's tape, don't pull it across the grain like this, or you could snap it on one of these grain lines. Best way to pull the turner's tape off is lock your spindle in a vertical position and then pry from the bottom. Pry a little bit from the top, go back and pry a little from the bottom, and it's starting to release. And you can see how hard that was. And the tape comes off. Once you do that, you can see it's pulling the it's pulling the paint off of this particular faceplate. And anyway, then to get it off, you can actually just kind of ball it up like this. So, a little shaping. And as you'll notice, I have my tailstock applying some pressure and safety gear. nice light passes. So let's check the parameters of this. So this piece is just about 3/4, and let's see what I have here. So I've taken away about 3/16. I can go another 3/16 maybe or so. Another 8, and we'll check it again. Okay. Okay, now I've got full quarter, almost 3/8. So that means I should have a little bit more I can go. There we go. I think that's just about it. A little bit of refining in there. Yep, and I think that's thin enough at this point with some sanding. Alright, so I'm going to do a little bit of sanding and then we'll put some finish on that. Alright, so I just wiped it down with alcohol and now I'm putting some finish on it. Friction rub finish. And there we go. Finished Sapele plate. Alright, there it is, finished piece. I'll take a few stills and post those as well.